In July of 1987, a grandmother and her 13-year-old granddaughter set out on a peaceful drive along California's scenic Highway 1. They never came home. What happened during that short drive remains one of California's most chilling unsolved mysteries. 65-year-old Jeanette and her granddaughter Sarah were close. That day, they planned a small road trip, just a lunch by the coast, nothing unusual. They left early in the morning from their small hometown, smiling, laughing, ready for the day. Around noon, they were seen at a gas station in Big Sur. The clerk remembered them clearly, friendly, relaxed, nothing strange. That was the last confirmed sighting. No distress. No odd behavior. Then, silence. By nightfall, their family grew worried. No calls. No sign of them returning. By morning, they reported them missing. Police began the search immediately. Helicopters scanned the cliffs. Dozens of volunteers combed through forest trails and rocky beaches. For days, nothing. No tire tracks. No broken guardrails. No evidence that their car had ever gone off the road. Weeks passed. Eventually, hikers reported finding tire marks near a cliff edge. Divers were sent below. Still, no vehicle was recovered. Some believed they were victims of foul play. Others thought it was an accident lost to the ocean. Jeanette's daughter, Sarah's mother, kept searching for years. Putting up flyers. Contacting newspapers. Begging for answers. No solid leads ever came. The case faded into silence. To this day, the case remains open. No bodies. No car. No answers. Just a peaceful highway, and two names forever frozen in time. If you know anything at all, you could help bring peace to a family that has waited decades. Subscribe to our channel for more haunting true stories that still need answers. Sometimes the smallest detail can solve the biggest mystery. It was the kind of summer day that felt like a dream. Clear skies, cool wind coming off the ocean, and Highway 1 stretching endlessly along California's rugged coast. That stretch of road is supposed to be peaceful, scenic, the kind of place you go to find clarity. But on August 14th, 1987, something else was found there. Or rather, not found. A grandmother and her 13-year-old granddaughter vanished along that highway. No crash, no tire marks, no call to police, no scream, just gone. Their names were Sylvia Voss, age 62, and her granddaughter, Mara Voss, a bright, creative 8th grader who had just been promoted to Honours English. They were last seen fueling up at a gas station in Big Sur, headed north along the coast. They told the clerk they were planning to stop for lunch at a cliffside cafe, a little place with no name that only locals really knew about. They never made it. The Vosses were driving a blue 1978 Buick Electra, old, solid, slow, easy to spot, but no one ever saw it again. Mara's school books were later found untouched on her desk at home. Her locker was cleaned out quietly. No memorial, no assembly, just absence. That fall, her name was called during first period attendance every day for 2 weeks, until it wasn't. And Sylvia, a retired teacher, loved by her neighborhood, active in her church, no enemies, no debts. Her bank account was never touched again. The strangest part, no missing persons report was filed for 72 hours, not by Mara's parents, who thought Sylvia had simply decided to take the long way back, not by police, who initially believed they'd simply missed a turn on the coast. And when the report was finally filed, no Amber Alert was issued. Why? Because there was no evidence of a crime, just silence. The search was quiet. A couple of helicopters, a few patrol cars scanning the cliffs. But Highway 1 is long, the ocean is deep, and the mountains are dense. And after 5 days, the case was archived, pending further evidence. The Voss family posted flyers, local papers ran headlines, but no new tips came in, and over time, they were forgotten. Until now. In 2023, during routine maintenance of a cliffside barrier near Big Sur, Caltrans workers found something strange embedded in the rocks below. A side mirror, blue, from a 1978 Buick Electra. Nearby, buried under a layer of silt and sand, a cassette tape in a cracked plastic case, label faded, but the tape itself intact. What was on that tape would reopen the case, send the FBI back to the cliffs, and unravel a mystery that had waited 36 years beneath the waves. But before the recording came to light, one other thing happened. A hiker, documenting his trip on YouTube, captured drone footage of the same area in July 2022. He posted it, just another beautiful aerial shot of the Big Sur coastline. But in one frame, less than 2 seconds long, something appears on the cliff's edge. A woman, standing alone, wearing a pale yellow coat, looking directly at the drone, and then gone. The hiker didn't even notice it until a viewer commented months later. At 03:18, is that someone standing there? The image was enhanced, blown up, and compared to the last known photo of Sylvia Voss, taken in 1986. The match was chilling. Same height, same coat, same posture, but that couldn't be. She'd been missing for over 3 decades, and yet, there she was. A few months later, the tape was discovered. Authorities digitized it. The recording begins with road noise, then the voice of a teenage girl, Mara. "We've been driving for hours. Grandma says the road's gonna curve back inland, but I don't think it does. It just keeps going." Sylvia's voice, faint. "The map doesn't show this part." Then silence. Then a sound, soft at first, like humming, not music, not mechanical. Almost like breathing. Mara again. "There's a light in the trees. Grandma thinks it's a ranger station, but there's no driveway." Then a sudden jolt. Tires squealing. A gasp. Sylvia's voice. "That's not a person." And then the tape cuts out. Authorities never explained what they thought that meant. But they did send divers to the coastal shelf near mile marker 328, the stretch of road that runs above the steepest drop. Nothing was recovered. Not a body, not the car. But local fishermen began to come forward with their own stories. One man, Carlos Jimenez, 67, said he saw headlights shining from beneath the waves one night in 1992. They stayed there for 3 minutes, then blinked out. He never reported it, said no one would have believed him. Another woman, a park ranger named Dana Kells, said she found an old school book near the cliffs in 2004. Inside, a nameplate. Mara Voss, property of room 202. She turned it in to local authorities. It was logged, then lost. No one knows what happened to it. By late 2023, the case had become something more than just cold. It had become haunting. A group of digital archivists, fascinated by unsolved mysteries, used AI to enhance the original recording. They discovered something that hadn't been heard before. A whisper, not from Sylvia, not from Mara, a voice underneath theirs, low, gravelly, saying the same phrase over and over. Turn back, turn back, turn back. But they didn't. So what really happened that day? Why didn't anyone search harder? Why did the authorities close the file so quickly? And what is it about Highway 1 that makes people vanish? Because Sylvia and Mara weren't the only ones. That stretch of coast has The Voss disappearance wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last. After the story resurfaced in 2023 with the discovery of a blue Buick side mirror, a cassette tape buried near a cliff, and a strange voice whispering, "Turn back," investigators began to look deeper into the surrounding area. What they found shocked even the most seasoned detectives. There had been at least 9 other disappearances along the same stretch of California's Highway 1 between 1965 and 1998. Most had been forgotten. A few were brushed off as accidents, but together they painted a pattern no one had ever seen before. It started in 1965 with the case of Timothy Rowan, a 22-year-old college student who vanished during a solo road trip along the coast. His car was found parked neatly along a scenic overlook near Big Sur. Keys in the ignition, camera on the passenger seat. No signs of struggle, no body. His last photo, developed from the camera, showed nothing unusual, just waves, until you zoomed in. Far in the distance, in the cliffs beyond the surf, was a faint silhouette of a woman in a pale coat. The same color coat Sylvia Voss was last seen wearing in 1987. No one noticed it then, because no one was looking. In 1972, a family of 3, the Callaways, disappeared during a weekend camping trip along the same stretch. Their campsite was found fully intact. Tent zipped, cooler full of food, fire still warm, but the 3 sleeping bags, empty. Local sheriff's deputies blamed a mudslide, but there was no debris, no weather reports of rain, just another mystery. In 1981, a couple driving southbound reported that their car stalled without warning just past mile marker 327. The husband got out to check the engine. The wife stayed in the passenger seat. She later told police she heard whispering, faint, coming from the forest just beyond the guardrail. She couldn't understand the words, but she remembered one thing. The whisper had her name, Evelyn. She said no one had ever said her name that way before, and she never wanted to hear it again. Her husband never saw or heard anything. They drove away as soon as the car restarted. She refused to drive that road again. All of this would have stayed forgotten if not for one woman, Nora West, a retired journalist from San Luis Obispo who'd grown up hearing local legends about the vanishing highway. She began her own investigation in 2019. She kept a digital map, pinning every unexplained incident, every reported sound, every strange light or story that had surfaced along that section of road. She found 27 pins, and every one of them fell between mile markers 323 and 330, a 7-mile stretch of road that winds between cliff face and forest, with no shoulder, no lighting, and no cell signal. Locals had their own names for it: the Drift Zone, Dead Mile, the Fade. Some believed it was geological, magnetic anomalies, fault lines, air pressure fluctuations. Others whispered older theories. The land was cursed, haunted, built over something it shouldn't be. But none of them had evidence until 2023, when the Voss tape surfaced and the whispers were recorded. When Nora West reviewed the audio, she noticed something chilling. She had heard that same phrase before: turn back, turn back, turn back. It matched another recording, one made by a park ranger in 1994 who was documenting sea erosion. At the 12-minute mark of his tape, that exact phrase is heard softly underneath the wind. He'd chalked it up to feedback. Now? It wasn't so easy to explain. Nora brought her findings to the state police. They listened, then went quiet. She never heard from them again. In October 2023, Nora disappeared. Her car was found parked near a trailhead off Highway 1. Door open, keys in the ignition, passenger seat empty, except for a flash drive labeled Their Voices. It contained one file, a sound loop, 17 seconds of ocean breeze and something underneath. Not whispering, breathing, like someone or something just waiting. The audio file ends with a phrase, distorted. They saw it, they spoke, they joined. Nora's body has never been found. Her home was later ransacked, laptop missing, notes gone. But her map, the 27 pins, had already been backed up by a group of amateur sleuths online. They posted it to a forum called Missing West, and within a month, 3 more people came forward with similar stories. One said they'd seen an old blue car parked beside the cliffs in 2005, no one inside. One said they'd heard a girl crying from beneath the overlook in 2011. And one said that in 2020, they had walked that road at dawn and saw a woman standing in the middle of the highway, facing the cliffs. Pale yellow coat, hands at her sides, eyes completely black. When they called out, she vanished, just blinked away. That witness refused to be interviewed again. By late 2023, the Voss case had become more than just a cold file. It had become a question. What's happening on that road? The FBI reopened the file quietly. They sent tech teams to scan the coastline using LiDAR and sonar. They found something. Not a body, not a car, but a tunnel collapsed, carved into the cliff face. It had no entrance from the surface. No map showed it, but it was there. And when sonar mapped the interior, it revealed something unexpected. The tunnel led not downward, but inward, toward the forest. Like something had been trying to connect the coast to the woods. A hidden path. That had been buried, or sealed. And the shape of it, roughly the same size as a car. When enhanced, the sonar image showed what looked like tire marks, fossilized into the stone floor. As if a vehicle had once driven straight through the cliff, as if the road had led somewhere else, somewhere not marked on any map. That's when a former Caltrans worker came forward anonymously. He claimed that in 1988, during a routine survey, his team discovered a hollow pocket near that section of Highway 1. Inside it, rusted fragments of what appeared to be a bumper. They were told to ignore it, told to seal the pocket with gravel, told it was nothing. But he remembered one thing, a piece of fabric they pulled out with the metal, a school patch, faded, but readable. Room 202, the same room written inside Mara Voss's missing school book. He turned the patch over. On the back, scribbled in pen, 2 words, help her. No one knows what that means. No one knows who her is. But a new theory has emerged, one that connects the Voss case with others. That maybe this wasn't just an accident, maybe it wasn't just a road. Maybe the disappearances are connected by... In stories like this, there's always the hope, no matter how thin, that the truth, once uncovered, will bring peace. Closure. Something that makes sense. But what investigators found beneath California's Highway 1 in early 2024 wasn't closure. It was something much worse. A hidden tunnel. Fossilized tire marks, a school patch with the words, help her, written in faded pen. All of it pointed back to the same unanswered question. What happened to Sylvia and Mara Voss on August 14, 1987? They weren't the only ones. We know that now. The map of missing persons along that cursed 7-mile stretch between mile markers 323 and 330 tells its own story. But the final clue, the one that reopened the investigation for good, came not from sonar, not from a witness, and not from any archive. It came from a storm. On February 2, 2024, heavy rains triggered a minor landslide near mile marker 329, just south of Big Sur. Caltrans crews arrived to clear the road. What they uncovered behind the collapsed rock wasn't just soil. It was a concrete panel, aged and discolored, embedded into the cliffside like a hatch. Behind it, a sealed compartment roughly the size of a garage. Inside, debris, mold, collapsed shelves, and a car. Blue, or at least it had been. A 1978 Buick Electra, its chassis almost unrecognizable after decades in salt air and erosion. But the plates matched. It was the Voss vehicle. What was left of it anyway? There was no sign of the occupants. The passenger door was jammed shut. The driver's side was open. Inside, a single object on the dashboard. A tape recorder. The same kind of device that held the first Voss tape recovered in 2023. But this one was marked with a piece of cracked tape. One word, handwritten, listen. The tape was retrieved, digitized, and reviewed by a joint task force that included FBI analysts, audio experts, and behavioral psychologists. But nothing could have prepared them for what it contained. The recording starts with wind, loud, harsh. Then a girl's voice, Mara. Grandma says it wasn't a ranger station. She says she saw a door, but there was no building, just the door. Then the voice of Sylvia, quiet, shaking. I've driven this highway 100 times. This road doesn't go where it used to. A pause. Mara again. There's someone standing in the trees. I think they're waiting. Then a jolt, metal scraping, tires screeching. Sylvia shouting, it's not a person, it's not a... The tape cuts, static. But then something else. A voice. Not Mara. Not Sylvia. Something layered, deep, repeating a phrase over and over. She didn't listen. She didn't listen. She didn't listen. That was the last thing recorded before the tape warped into silence. When enhanced by the FBI's forensic audio team, hidden frequencies were detected. Patterns, almost like coordinates. When mapped, they pointed to an area deep in the forest above the highway, a location never searched. And that's where they found it. A circular clearing, roughly 60 feet across, completely silent. No birds, no wind. In the center, a stone structure, like a well, but sealed. Around it, a ring of objects buried in the soil, all rusted, all aged. A child's shoe, a school patch, a rosary, a cracked pair of reading glasses, a photograph burned at the edges. The photo was recovered and cleaned. It showed two figures, a woman and a girl, standing in the middle of the road, looking at the camera, their eyes entirely blacked out. On the back, 3 words scratched into the paper: do not follow. DNA testing later confirmed that the glasses belonged to Sylvia Voss. And the shoe? A match for Mara's size, down to a custom insert her mother had purchased from a medical catalogue in 1987. No one could explain how these objects ended up in the forest, miles from the crash site, without a trail, without drag marks, without a single footprint. The clearing was declared restricted federal land. Access denied. No public statements made. But those who had seen it couldn't forget. One analyst quit. One filed for psychiatric leave. And one anonymously leaked the photo to a small investigative YouTube channel. That's how the public found out. That's how the story came roaring back. And that's when the messages started. Viewers began to report strange things after watching the leaked footage. Dreams, vision, a woman in yellow knocking at their window. A teenage girl standing silently in the middle of a highway that didn't exist. One viewer, a retired truck driver, said he remembered seeing the Voss car that day in 1987. He never said anything because he'd forgotten, or at least he thought he had. Now he says something made him forget, that every time he drove past that stretch, his radio would fuzz, his vision would blur, like something didn't want to be remembered. And now that it had been, things were waking up. The theory emerging from all of this is chilling, that the road, or the space beneath it, is alive or aware, not in the way we think of living things, but as something ancient, rooted, feeding off memory. That those who see too much vanish. That the road doesn't just connect towns, it collects people. And the whispers? They aren't warnings. They're instructions. Turn back. Don't listen. Do not follow. Because following means becoming part of it. And now, 37 years after Sylvia and Mara vanished, we have the car, we have the tapes, we have the place, but we still don't have them. Not really. Only what they left behind. A map of fear, a trail of voices, and a message written again and again in every whisper. Some roads take you places. Some roads take you. So the next time you're driving along California's coast, and the trees seem too quiet, and your radio cuts out, and the wind sounds like someone saying your name, don't stop, don't listen, and whatever you do, don't follow.